Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy Road Dogg here with the man, the myth, the tech giant and tech department head, Dr. Karl Bryan. Doctor, are you with us this morning?
I am, Shoots. I am. Anybody listening, we just spent the better part of 10 minutes in the pre-show, wasting a lot of time, but trying to work out why this microphone that I'm currently speaking into, pretty much out of habit, maybe just a little bit like people that smoke cigarettes do it in this. But anyways, I'm talking into it, but hopefully the audio is good for everybody listening to this on the podcast. But anyways, all good. How you doing, Shoots?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I was at a wedding this last week and managed to throw out my back somehow. I honestly, I think it's just too much driving. So I'm in a excruciating amount of pain today. Literally, I am about 2 notches on the pain scale away of driving myself to the hospital right now. So we'll see how that goes. But anyways, that's me.
But again, you were the best man. You were the best man, Shoots. Let's not leave that out.
Hey, here's the best part. I actually pulled a KB at the wedding after. So this one dude, anyway, he took us mountaineering on the Friday, and we went up literally off the grid. And this is like the ultimate alpha male dude. Like, he's from Zimbabwe. He is just an incredible human being. And you'll be not surprised at all that he is like a personal protection bodyguard type individual now.
Oh, wow.
So he shows up at the wedding in this beautiful blue suit. And there's me pulling a Karl as best as I can towards, later on in the evening as I start yelling, "It's Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, Conor McGregor."
Well done.
Oh, my God. I'm like, what's happening? Karl's rubbing off way too much on me right now.
Oh, my God. It brings a tear to my eye, bro. No.
Oh, it was pretty funny, though. Dude looked like Conor McGregor, and I'm just like, it just happened. It came out of me, and I'm like, this seems appropriate, though, because he really looked like Conor McGregor.
We were on a boat this weekend, and we just tied up a boat. We got like 10 boats hanging out on the shore at Gyro Beach, and I was with Bieber's dad, and we're on this big, buddy's got a pretty kick butt boat, and anyways, we're on it, and everybody on that beach knew that Justin Bieber's father is with us. There we go. Justin Bieber's father, ladies and gentlemen. Justin Bieber's half brother, right there, Shoots. Anyways, there you go. Fun in the sun.
All right. Are you ready to dive in? Maybe we could make it past one question this week.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but
hey, look,
last week, folks, it was pretty quick. But there we go.
Some rabbit holes are deeper than others, as they say, right? So let's go ahead and dive in. The first question here has to do with one of. Speaking of Karl-isms, there should almost be a website with Karl-isms, but anyways, so the question here is, when you say systems stifle creativity, and I'm sure everyone's heard you say that before, what do you mean? Because systems are critical to growing a business, and obviously you have an extremely systemized business, right? So how does that work for a guy that has like an extremely systemized business? How are you the one that's also saying systems stifle creativity? Like, can you dive into that for us?
Got it. By the way, shout out to Kermit here, because I'm pretty sure I know where this one comes from. Long-time reader of my emails, and good guy. Okay, so I better give the foundation in case anybody, many aren't going to understand it too well. Michael Gerber, when you think of systems, you think of the E-Myth, and Michael Gerber's name tends to come up, which is fantastic. Great book, the E-Myth. Highly recommend you read it. The only problem that I see is that Michael Gerber has never built a business, and I personally don't like to learn. I just don't know. If you never built a business, then you don't know, or maybe you do. Maybe I'm the one that's wrong, and that's okay. But systems stifle creativity. If you're working at McDonald's, systems are great, right? But the reality is that I guess that systems stifle creativity. Like maybe two-part answer. Think of your business as consumer facing and staff facing. So again, if you're flipping burgers, you want to systematize everything. But if you're hiring six-figure professionals trying to advance their career and looking for some job satisfaction, systemizing too much is you're just going to lose them, right? They want freedom, right? Like primarily, actually, staff want three things: they want a sense of contribution, they want to give back, and they want to learn a lot. So if you look at Google, rather than reading the E-Myth, if you looked at Google, $1 trillion company, maybe we could learn something. Their staff are encouraged, if not told, to take, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's about 20%, might even be more than that, 20% of their time and work on a side hustle / project that they feel would complement Google activities, right? So that's how you keep good talent, right? That's how you breed an innovative culture. And then I'll let you decide if your client or you want to have an innovative culture, not a static one, right? And by the way, $1 trillion company. Companies that try to control too much in their employees basically just wave goodbye, right? So systems stifle creativity. And when you look at a company, like you look after, is it staff or customers that are more important? Okay. My opinion, Google's opinion, Warren Buffett's opinion, Jeff Bezos' opinion is that, well, actually, let me just, all of that, let's take with a grain of salt, but it's staff first, customers second, because it's your staff that look after the customers. So if you've got happy staff, you're going to have happy customers, right? It's kind of the logic behind it. A more complex topic than that, but hopefully you can, put some X and O's in there and go. But part two, behavioral economics observes what people do rather than what they think they'll do, right? Like based on like mathematical equations and, complex formulations, right? There are parts of your business where developing subjective measures of reality will open doors that logic and systems just will not. Think about this. Think of war, right? In war, the last thing that you want to do is be predictable, especially when planning an attack. You want to be deceptive like a lion in the wilderness looking for tonight's dinner, right? You want your enemy to think that you're doing one thing when really, behind the scenes, you're doing something totally different. Case in point, Michael Jordan, he said the best part of playing for Team USA in the Olympics was learning the weaknesses of his teammates and having that knowledge when they returned to the NBA, right? Or he'd go to the All-Star game and he would ask players, what's the one weakness you have and that you'd like to improve? They're so excited to be talking to Michael Jordan, they would tell him, right? They didn't realize what he was doing was taking notes, and he was basically at the All-Star game on a reconnaissance mission for the playoffs, right? So forget Michael Jordan, forget going to war. Are you looking for that competitive advantage? Are you always on the lookout like a Michael Jordan? Are you ever looking for a competitive advantage, by the way? Is your client looking for that competitive advantage? And are you looking on behalf of your client, right? Like we've got a program where you, if you work with us, you become an author in 30 days. Well, we've got multiple books. So think like Marketing with Karl, Digital Marketing with Karl, Accounting with Karl, all these different, goal setting and time management with Karl, business with Karl. So pick 3 of those and I've got a book trilogy. Do you see how when somebody goes to your website and they see a book, they think, cool. When they go there and they see Marketing with Karl, Digital Marketing with Karl, and Accounting with Karl, all of a sudden they think, wow, this guy maybe knows a little more than I do. Or that would be my opinion, but that's an example of how, you take something intrinsic and kind of move it in your favor. Like if I'm trying to sell you coaching, one of the first things that I'm going to ask you is, what are your 3 biggest challenges / weaknesses? I would then go through about a 90-minute to 2-hour process, but all roads lead back to me solving the issue that you told me 2 hours ago. Those are the 3 big ones, right? That's the needle mover for you. That's what's going to work. Like, you're going to a networking function, right? What's the concern of people at a networking function? That you're just hobnobbing and not really interested in their business, right? And you're not really going to help them. Well, that's why, like when you go to a networking function, you say, I'm a business coach or I'm a realtor, basically they automatically fall into beta mode. And whatever you say after that means nothing because they already, they tuned out, right? You're insanely predictable is kind of what I'm getting at there, right? You want to be totally unpredictable. Like I'd go to a networking function and I would say, you got to do your little elevator pitch and wear your name badge and sit there like they tell you, right, in a particular chair. Well, I'd stand up and say, I help businesses grow 100x in 12 months, but I'm far too busy to take on a client. So I don't really have anything here to sell. Dave invited me and I wanted to see what you guys were up to. I thought breakfast sounded like a great idea at the Sheraton. Here I am. So, I just honored to be here with you guys and I hope all your businesses are going great. Sit down. Do you think that might generate a little bit more interest? You're looking for curiosity. There's a story of a guy who did some speaking and he used to wear a t-shirt that said, I hate clients or something to that effect. Most popular guy at the event, almost every single time, being unpredictable, right? But in a good way, right? Like I train our coaches to go to like networking functions and bring tickets to your upcoming event, right? So stand up, don't give them some, elevator pitch, this, that, and the other, which you can do that. Again, be unpredictable, do different things at different times, but, give them tickets to your upcoming seminar coming up at the chamber in 10 days from today, right? Would that be a good idea? And again, when you're speaking to these people and you're hobnobbing, instead of saying, hey, here's what I do, and hey, can I send you business, yada, 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 the way that they tell you to do it. So, like you're just talking to Dave, the chiropractor. Hey, Dave, what are the 3 biggest challenges that you think a chiropractor face? Okay. And then he tells you and try solve something literally on the spot. That's not what the realtor's doing. That's not what the other members of the group were taught to do. And are doing, right? The bottom line, creating an emotional reaction is the art of selling, right? So don't be too predictable. People don't buy Ferraris to get from A to B. They don't buy Rolexes to tell time. My wife, I always wear a watch and my wife always kind of jokes around and says, oh, ask Karl the time. And she'll point at my watch. And of course, it's never the right time, right? Because I'm not using my watch for the time, quite frankly, right? Yeah, and this is why you need to be careful allowing logistics, R&D, finance departments to take too much control over a growing business, which, by the way, a growing business, they often do, because cash flow becomes a very, important topic, and too much reliance on their opinion comes to it. If you think about R&D and marketing, they're the same thing. Only 2 ways to create economic value. One, you find what people want and you work out a clever way of delivering it. 2 is you work out what you can deliver and find a clever way of making people want it. Only 2 ways to create economic value right there, right? Either one of them can create a great result in a fabulous business, but clever being the operative word. Bottom line, Road Dog, being systematized and too predictable, can be the death knell. And, that's pretty important. We're thinking about, intrinsic and, being creative and being deceptive like a Michael Jordan, as opposed to going to these networking functions and trying to get 2 clients. You follow? What do you think? You like?
Karl, like you just sort of mentioned something there. So can you give me an example of those clever ways to, like, 1, find out what people want and you work out a clever way of delivering it to them, and 2, you mentioned work out what you can deliver and find a clever way of making people want it?
Boom. There we go, Shoots. Yeah, that's a good question. Think of it as objective and subjective, okay? Like these are the 2 realities that you have in any one business, right? So objective would be making something faster, improving its efficiency, effectiveness in a tangible way. So subjective, very different, is making something better, maybe more enjoyable. It's enhancing the experience, right? If you want to compete with Amazon online, or no, you're a retailer trying to compete with Amazon, you're going to have to create a customer experience in order to make your business thrive. So that would be, selling skateboards and having a ramp in your, facility, or selling hockey sticks and allowing kids to shoot with the sticks. So you see how that would up the experience, right? So here, let me give you a couple examples. Like objective examples would be like painting a house faster would be, there's a company called Wow Painting, right? They come in, out, 24 hours, bingo, bango, bungo. Delivering a parcel or a service in a more time efficient way, making a car more fuel efficient, making a train go faster, providing like memory on your phone, right? Like again, my phone's about to die, very painful death here. So getting a phone with more memory, more photos, more videos, more this, that, and the other. And I haven't taken a photo in about 2 years, but anyways, Like a driverless truck in the transportation industry, a weight gym that folds up and could take up less room. These objective improvements are generally insanely expensive and difficult. And then it's like, can a business afford it? So think Facebook spending billions on virtual reality and then Google spending billions on driverless cars. Well, what's Ford doing? They're fighting to keep their head above water while keeping up with, the electric and hybrid cars that they're bringing out, right? They're 2 years behind Elon Musk, right? In fact, probably more than that. So what I'm trying to say is improving subjective can be a whole lot easier and a whole lot less expensive. Like objective would be hiring an engineer firm and spending $1 billion to make a high-speed train line and like saving an hour off a five-hour trip, right? Subjective would be rather than making the train faster, and let's assume that's, to create that line, it's going to be, I don't know, a few $1 billion. You seek and find ways to make the train ride 10x more enjoyable for a fraction of the cost. Yes, and people want to get there faster. There's no question. There's always going to be a place for that. But a Ferrari is more about subjective and intrinsic value than the fact that it goes faster than the Toyota, right? So let's say that you had a train, right? Instead of doing the high-speed line, do upgrades like first-class seating, right? Do priority boarding. Do like the fastest Wi-Fi money could buy. Reclining chairs sound like a good idea. Maybe beds. Building a bar in a social area with loud music on the trains. You actually don't want to get off. Soundproof rooms for calls, right? Imagine you're provide that. That's a subjective offering as opposed to making the train go faster, right? Is getting there an hour faster better than all those added extras? And dependent upon the individual, the answer is, it's going to be maybe. Some just need to get there quicker, and some love the idea. Like the staff that are not in a rush at all, they're going to love the idea of hanging out by the bar and having a couple pops, right? So people try to solve things logistically, right? Where I just went is psychologically. The finance side of the business tends to hate the marketing side of the business. And that's the reason why. The grayest part of any business is definitely consumer buying decisions, right? Why do they buy the Rolex? Why do they buy the Ferrari? Why do you wait in line for 2 hours to buy the Apple phone, right? Variance in this area is vast. Like I've got a client spends $300,000 a year on a profit sharing deal, has, teams and, team of, dozens and dozens and dozens of coaches underneath him. He's proud of the fact that a profit, and by the way, it's profit sharing. So he's happy in a lot of ways, but he's proud to be my number one client, right? Back in the day, I charged $500,000 for coaching. There was a level of prestige that came with that program, and to sell it without the prestige would have been a dramatic error, right? To not talk to people, let people know that he spent $500,000 as an example, right? And, again, and is that part of your process, right? And I bet a lot of money that your clients are not thinking about this in any way, shape, or form. And remember, the most successful brands in the world have one thing in common across the board. Rolex, Ferrari, Burberry, Apple, Tiffany's, whatever. When I say the best brands in the world, whatever you say, they have this in common: margin. But your client doesn't even know what margin means, right? Your clients have never thought about how they can increase the experience and an intrinsic value of their clients. I built a $5.5 million coaching company, and 3 times a year, what we do is we would get all of my coaches, all of their clients would get together in one room, right? We'd have lunch. We get together for the entire day. We'd all be learning together. We're getting to know each other. We're doing lunch. We're eating together. After the seminar, we'd be having drinks and letting our hair down for those that wanted to stick around, and others had to get home, and that's fine. We'd be encouraging partnerships. Well, all of my coaches would poop their pants and go, what if my client's not super happy? Are they going to come to this event and talk to the other clients, and all of a sudden we're going to have a mass exodus? I just said, guys, it's just not first of all, do a bang up job with your client, right? Let's start there. But believe me, they're not going to get together. And not to mention, I knew that we were going to put on a hell of a show. So anybody in this room, this was complimentary with their coaching program. Nobody there wasn't going to be, having it it was insanely, I made it insanely fun, right? So again, it added to the event. It added to the relationship with their coach, right? We do the same with business coaching mastery, right? Road Dog, you've come along. We go to Cancun and all of our clients mingle in the sun on the beach. Got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're learning together. After the seminar, we all head to the bar and have a couple of pops, let our hair down. And in almost always the feedback that we get, the best part of it were the relationships with the other coaches. And then, so now what we do is we do virtual business coaching mastery. In fact, we have one coming up very shortly, possibly next week, actually. But so what we do is we get our top coaches who all see our coaches use our system, the software, find 100 grand in 45 minutes without spending $1 on marketing or advertising. And they use it in all different ways. I got tons of business brokers, M&A guys, the networking guy that I talked about earlier, right? We help them create a consulting division. Obviously, we have business consultants. We got digital marketers. We've got clients of all shapes and sizes. So what we do is bring in our really high-end successful coaches, and we're going to do 30-minute, real short, sharp presentations where they're going to be coming in and dropping their best bit of magic on how they use our system. So what I'm trying to get at is, systematized way, back to the earlier question. It's not cookie cutter. This is the way you do it. This is the way you have to do it. It's about taking our system and using it in a manner that provides great power to what they're doing. I'd always prefer, Road Dog, to pour gasoline on something that's working than try and create something that, new or sexy. But they all love the new and sexy stuff. I like to go to, just think of it that way. What is working, pour gasoline on it, and you're going to have a really profitable relationship with your client, as opposed to introducing something new, on and on and on and on it goes. So Road Dog, that's what I would, there's a few examples, but think subjective and objective. Objective is the obvious one, and this is where I think, I dare say 90% of a population will automatically go. And there's real magic in the subjective way, and enhancing the experience, enhancing the enjoyment. If you have a coaching company and you're crushing it, how often do you get your actual clients together in a room, right? And I dare say you never do that. If I asked you why, you wouldn't say it immediately, but a little bit of time, you'd be like, I don't know if I want all my clients knowing one another, to do, right? Well, I don't know. That's not the way I would be looking at it. Very differently. I'd be looking at how you can create a kick butt experience for your clients, and there's serious magic there for you and for your coaching clients. What do you think, Shoots?
So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. Obviously, I know I use athletes a lot, right, as an example of needing a coach, right? Like your boyfriend Tom Brady needs a coach. Jordan had a coach, Tiger, Federer, you name it, right? Like anybody at a high level has had a coach. I wanted to just throw it by, like, what parallels do you see between sport and business coaching?
What parallels do I see between sport? I see parallels everywhere, right? Like, look, LeBron's got a coach. Jordan had a coach. Tiger Woods has a coach. The parallels, like part of the reason why it works is there's things, when you're comparing sport and business, right? There's things there's things you don't know, and things you don't know, right? So if you try and connect something they don't know with something they don't know, you're not going to get very far, right? So when you say that LeBron has a coach and Jordan had a coach and Tiger Woods has a coach, and then there's no professional athlete in the world that doesn't have a coach, right? I played some hockey in my day. I know what even my beer league hockey team without a coach, what that looks like. And then I played roller hockey for Team Canada, and I know that the importance of the role of the coach and listening and allowing him to have, the importance of allowing him to actually be part of being, having a good coach is allowing your coach to be good. Right? Like that's part of the problem a lot of your clients have, is they don't allow you the space and the freedom to actually be good. You tell them to jump, and instead of saying how high, they just fight you back on why you're asking, like, why jump, right? And then, by the way, if you want to know why that happens, I dare say mental models and like helping them with stuff like, 80-20, inversion. There's so many of them. You're not allowing them, they don't know mental models, so therefore there's no point introducing mental models until you let them give them examples of mental models and how they work, and then allowing them to make their own decisions. Am I saying that right? Like You know what I mean? Like I'm coaching you. I know where we're going, but I want it to be your idea. But I already had the idea 3 weeks ago, and I just had to allow you to come up with it. If that kind of makes sense, right? So when you're working with your clients, they need to allow you the space to be a good coach, and the way they do that is to listen and do it. Well, there's an art to that, right? By being a better coach, you allow all these ideas to be theirs, kind of thing. And again, an issue that you see, like a fat person seeks a fat person to lose weight with, right? A broke person seeks a broke person to make money with. A smoker seeks a smoker to stop smoking with, right? If you want to go to the gym, line up with somebody with a six pack. You want to stop smoking, line up with somebody who doesn't smoke, right? And the list goes on, by the way, right? So like even when I'm speaking to my clients that spend over $100,000, like we have a, invitation only, close knit certified group. And I'm explaining about, like athletes and the connection. Like I'm saying, business coaching is a high level, sophisticated game. To pretend anything different is crazy. If you think that you're going to line up with your client, just tell them what to do, and then they're just automatically going to do it without context and without framing, you're dreaming, right? And the irony is that the better you think that you're doing, the more concerned you should be, right? Pay attention to this. If you ever had success and then drop back down, this might hit home. Athletes who stay at the top for an extended period are normally dangerously fearful. Okay? Again, dangerously fearful, paranoid. Basking in past successes is when you're most likely to slip up. When the guy buys the Ferrari, the boat a little bit too early, I'm sorry, bad news is coming, right? So look for secrets of the ultra competitive. And the best of the best is in Jordan, LeBron, Gretzky, my boy Brady, Serena, Federer, I don't know, Tiger Woods, Kobe, the late great Kobe, Schumacher. Gosh, those two guys, poor bugger. But so like, let me try to list a few. Like, here's what they are, right? They're insanely disappointed in their own performance, and any successes are used as motivation towards a higher level of performance the next time, the next game, the next playoff game, right? They never enter complacency or bask in glory of past performances. Why? Because they're dangerously fearful and dangerously paranoid, right? And when they do start to bask in the glory of past performances, this is when they start to slide, right? The best of the best perform at their best on the biggest stages, right? They peak at the right moment. If you look at a tennis match, you'll see, you ever noticed that? You ever wondered why it's like 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, and the guy wins in straight sets? Because they're not trying to create a balanced approach. They know that there's specific times that they need to step up. And conserving energy would be a dramatic exaggeration, but you get the idea where there's a certain way and time that they need to elevate, right? They're not looking for a certain and consistent level of performance, most definitely. Remember, like last season, Drew Brees, right? The New Orleans Saints beat Brady twice during the season, right? He moved to Tampa Bay. And then in the playoffs, what happened? Brady kicked their butt and won in the Super Bowl, right? And it's not that Brady let him win by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just that Brady knew there's a specific time that he's got to elevate, right? And the best of the best never feel like they're ahead while competing. They compete like they're scared to lose, fighting to catch up, regardless of what the score is. And this creates their competitive advantage. I love like Novak Djokovic. That's a guy, man, that he just doesn't get the respect he deserves. I personally, for my money, Novak will go down as the greatest tennis player of all time. But I don't think that he'll get credit because I think Federer was just so loved and Nadal's got, the better looks or whatever it is. But like Novak, for some reason, he kind of grates people a little bit. And I think he's tied with Federer right now in Grand Slam wins. If he's not, he's right on his tail. But the problem is Novak's like still in his prime. So barring an injury, I don't see how Novak doesn't beat it. And if you knew how, and by the way, like Federer beat, I believe it was Sampras, and he didn't beat him, but I think like Sampras had 12 Grand Slams, and then Federer has like 20, and like, an extra 8. Like he didn't beat him by a little, he crushed it, right? And everybody's like, Federer's the greatest of all time. Well, Novak is right there now, and again, he's still in his prime. So, okay, what am I saying? Novak gets no respect Nobody's sitting there. Well, I'm not that nobody's saying he's the greatest of all time, but that's just not the conversation out there in any way, shape, or form. Versus Federer, it's been that talk for a decade, and then Nadal kind of gets mentioned in there, right? But the bottom line is that I think Novak is playing in a way like where he's kind of dangerously fearful or paranoid would be a way better way of describing it. And he doesn't get any respect. He gets booed at all the majors, right? Is It's almost wild, but that's my money. So I think that Novak, because he's got that chip on his shoulder, and a guy like Schumacher, right, that was just like absolutely, like just reinvented his sport practically. He was that dominant, but he never felt like it. And he was always scared to get knocked off his perch. And I can tell you from, playing some sport and whatnot, the best of the best of the best, this is the way they do it. So like those same three little kind of attributes I just gave you, right, where they're insanely disappointed. They perform their best on the biggest stages, and then they never feel like they're ahead while they're competing. Those three things, take that to your high-end coaching clients as business, and I think that you'll find you'll help them elevate and never bask in success, right? Be ultra. By the way, I'm if you're listening to this and you're looking at taking your coaching game to the next level, and you're not sitting there trying to work out how you can make 10 grand a month, 120 grand a year, which again is so lame, it's insane. It's an okay place to start, but if that's where you're at, you're in the sandbox, right? Like your feet are well and truly up against the starter blocks, and you haven't even started running the 100-meter dash yet. You really want to crush it, is what I'm getting at. Being ultra paranoid. We often talk about it, Road Dog, right? Like just imagine how amped up people get, players in a football game get before the game. And think about how much training goes on, during the week before Sunday's game, right? Imagine, the way they watch their diet and the amount of water that they drink and the time that they spend in the gym, etc. So that's what I'd say, Road Dog. Yeah, I like that. I think that there's wicked parallels, and I think that a really powerful way of selling coaching, and then B, pushing the envelope with your clients so you get results and they crush it, you crush it, and you end up with that 3-year client instead of that 90-day client that then magically wants to give up and says, oh, it's all too much, and look, I just want you to do it all for me. If you want to get there operating on a level of paranoid, be paranoid that you're going to lose your client at any stage, right? There'll be a different way of operating than, gosh damn, doesn't he realize, like I hear all the time, like I've done so much for this guy. Doesn't he realize I went above and beyond, yada, yada, yada. And I get it. And I'm not, poo-pooing that, because you probably did, but that's, if that's not the way Roger Federer wasn't sitting there basking in past efforts. He's not, I trained this kid, and now he's up here playing against me in Wimbledon with, millions of people watching on TV, and he's going to beat me. Are you kidding me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's giving me the death stare in between sets as we cross. Like, that little crap is doing that. That's not the way he's thinking. You know what I mean? Like, he's paranoid. He's dangerously fearful. He's professional athletes operate in a certain way. A business owner should. You as a business coach, if you want to crush it, make a dent. Again, not make 100 grand, but make a dent in your community, in your city, in your state, maybe the country, maybe the planet. I think you should operate from that, with that framework. So what do you think, Shoots? You like that?
Well, it's interesting because when you say, like, you're talking about football guys and just how hard they train in the gym and just how meticulous they are with just their nutrition. It's crazy because it reminds me of you. Like, just, I've never seen a guy train so hard and just watch so much what he's putting into his body as you, Shoots. So, there you go.
Buddy, yeah. I've been lifting, kickboxing and lifted weights I've done it for ages, by the way, but last 7 days since you saw me shoot. So there you go, mate. There you go. Anyway, let's keep going.
14, but who's counting? And by the way, lifting the bar doesn't mean you're lifting weights. I've said it before, and I will continue to say it, Shoot. So anyways, hey, listen, we know that obviously with COVID, the pandemic and everything else, there's a lot of movement that seems to be happening, like literally people moving. And I'm not sure if we've addressed this before, but we probably have in one way, shape, or form. But because somebody wrote in, it's like, look, I'm a business coach. I'm thinking of moving from California to Florida. Shocker. You're right. Seriously, who's not leaving California these days? Is that a positive or a negative from a business building standpoint? And obviously, you've got experience with this. You've moved around a lot. Can you kind of share a little bit of insight here? Like like they're asking specifically from a business building standpoint.
Yeah. And yes, I buffeted myself around building companies as such. So, look, look, this is great on steroids. Some would say that you should move every 5 years from a personal standpoint, and um, relation, your marriage and your kids, yada yada yada, is just good for everybody to get out of Dodge and do something new. I don't know. That's you know. But like ironically enough, I moved to where we live, Road Dog, 5 years ago. I'm not going anywhere, right? But when you do move, you got to immerse yourself, in the new place, like, and grow, get comfortable with kind of being uncomfortable. Like when you go to the college, and we talked about this actually a while ago, but if you go to college in the same city as you live, it's not anywhere near the experience of when you go to a different city, right? Like people love what's new. So if you're good at what you do, let's assume running local live events, the fact you're new is going to work in your favor if it's done right, like the hype that you can create. Think of when you go to see a comedian, and he's headlining the show. He's never from there, right? He's from Vegas. He's from Scottsdale. He's from Australia. Like they're always bringing him in from somewhere. That's not by accident, right? So, and some of the reasons to leave, like entrepreneurship. So why would you leave? COVID. I could see why somebody's going from California to Florida. Leave that one right there. Entrepreneurship, like, is where you live pro business. You look at tax laws. It'll tell you a lot. Look at gas prices. An example, like you mentioned CA in the question, like where they tax you until you say uncle. And again, look at the gas prices and that'll tell you where it's at, right? Like compare gas in Texas and gas in California, and then you tell me, right? Let's face it, California is moving. And shout out, California. I love the joint, right? California girls, David Lee Roth all the way. But California is I don't know, feels a little, I'm going to say Russia-ish, but you can make your own decision, right? But the cost of living in California is expensive as heck. And other places like, Florida, Idaho, just like so much cheaper and kind of growing. And transportation, if you're going to move, so I'd be thinking about that. Like you need I think if you're going to be a business coach of any measure, having an international airport would be important. Or if you travel a lot, an international airport would be important. Even assessing things like, traffic, like the commute to your office. Like you're thinking about moving. Well, my question is, what's the point of moving if you're spending an hour on your way to work and an hour home, right? That just sounds like, something that makes me want to throw up in my mouth. So that, like, you're thinking about moving. I think that don't just move because mistake. We listen to the influencers on Facebook, right? As all of a sudden Florida's the place to be. Well, I don't, you know what I mean? Like that's not correct. Not even close. Do your own homework, right? Like, is it the right place for you, your family, your situation, right? Definitely COVID, how governments handle the pandemic, and how they protect business owners. Like, again, California, I don't know. You tell me how they did. New York, you tell me how they did, right? Is there a bigger jackass on this planet than Andrew Cuomo? And some states handled it, far better. They protected their business owners. Like Disneyland was closed and Disney World was open, right? Like that, I'd be using that as part of my decision-making process, So again, it's not just should you move? Is it a good idea every 5 years? I mean, think of it from an objective kind of point of view, right? It's, business coach, it's pretty hard to coach people that their doors are closed for 9 months, right? Taxes, places like Texas, Washington, Nevada, Tennessee, Florida got the very different tax situation than some of the other states. And of course, I'm just going by the U.S. because that majority of our listeners are there. I definitely think lifestyle, for like where I'm at, right? And like recruitment, right? Like serious stuff like weather, politics, safety, crime, culture, travel. Like I love the idea of living on the East Coast because of the proximity to New York, Mexico, Europe. for like a holiday, right? Whereas where we live on the West Coast and we're far more isolated here. But it's also got some other, we've got, we don't need to go anywhere, right? I was on a few weeks ago, I was mountain biking in the mountains. And then, 2 days ago, I was, in the lake on a boat chilling out, right? So anyways, there's, I don't know. I think that these are things you need to think about. And again, just, mountain, but I'm not you, right? Like you and your family, mountains, ocean, lake, proximity to your parents, boating, skiing, golf, restaurants, sport teams and sports events. Like I used to live in Melbourne, Australia for a long time, almost a decade and a half. I got to tell you about one of the coolest cities in the world, bar none. It's got so much culture and so many sports. Like it's crazy, crazy. Yeah, you might love, you got young family, going to Disney. I got a buddy on Facebook. I mean, the guy literally goes to Disney every week. He loves the thing, right? He likes it more than his kids. Like, I don't know. These are the types of things I've been thinking about. Oh, economy, different, like, is it growing or declining, right? Like in 2008, USA got crushed, but Texas hardly got hit. In comparison, because it's oil and gas country, right? So if I was a business coach in 2008, I'm generating leads in Texas in 2008 all day long, and I told them all to do exactly. Anybody I spoke to, I told to do that. Florida's like actively trying to attract Silicon Valley types and also build its own little quote unquote Silicon Valley. I like that kind of environment, right? Like, in fact, where we live, Road Dog, they're trying to do something similar where they're trying to, create a little bit of a Silicon Valley type feel. Will they? Who knows? It's kind of happening. But a perfect place to live. If you can live anywhere, this is where you'd want to live, kind of place that you'd want to live. So I don't know. That being said, these things can change, and that's why you should be nimble, both to move out and move in. Like where I grew up, Texas, it was like it's oil and gas country. It's like the Texas of Canada. The NDP government moved in. Basically, they all but adopted communism for a while. They're out now, but they made a mess, and the place has been in steady decline for close to a decade. Look it up, Calgary, Alberta. It's there. The stampede's going on right now. If I lived in Alberta, I'd likely thinking if I'm a business coach and I'm living in Alberta, I'm thinking long and hard about generating leads outside of that province, state, same idea, right? I don't. Maybe that's about that. That being said, you might be totally different vantage point, which is great. You might feel like, well, because they're hurting, this is going to open up more opportunities as you as a business coach. It's going to be that much easier for you to fill events like COVID. We have a program where basically you're just contacting businesses where you affected by COVID. Everybody says yes, positively or negatively, which will then change your track. But we've got, press releases and grants and all these really cool programs for our business coaches to go and get clients. Like COVID has been like really positive for our clients. The ones that used them, right? The ones that sat on their hands and cried in their Cheerios weren't able to use COVID and still not able to use COVID to their advantage, right? So, these are the things I'd be thinking about. Like this again, if I lived in Alberta, I said I'd be thinking about that. So the economy's down. Maybe this is it's not that maybe it is. It is a positive, but you just got to use it that way. And the question is, are you using it in that way? Look at it differently. Like I don't wait in lines, right? Society teaches you at a young age to wait your turn and, don't bitch about it. I'd prefer to basically pay my way to get to the front, right? Which, by the way, is a different way of doing it. It's achieving status that allows you to kind of move to the front of the line. Like Mark Wahlberg was in the owner's box at the Super Bowl. Had nothing to do with the ticket that he bought. It had to do with who he was and the status that he has, right? Boom. Next thing you know, he's sitting in there with Kraft, the owner of New England Patriots, right? So, Road Dog, you and I we just raised 10 grand, not this weekend, but last for the local bar. And a lot of the money went to suicide, right? Like that, like you think that we go into the bar and the owner is like Pam, she's like, hey, how's it going? You know what I mean? Like it's, if we want, I don't know. Maybe that's a great example. Maybe that's a horrific example. I got to tell you, when you walk into the bar and you create an event that generates $10,000, you get treated a little bit differently when you go in there. That's just the way it is. Good, bad, and different. I don't know. You decide. But did you go make 10 grand for your local bar? And would that be a good idea? Would that make your boat go faster? There's probably a debate to say, no, you should be doing something, go make 10 grand for the local accountant. But thinking about that, right? Like that's a way to go deliver, objective value immediately so that you get that subjective, intrinsic, preferential treatment, is it? Again, go to the local, look, when I was generating leads, I'd go to the local chamber, and I would pay $2,000. I would become a sponsor. I would put my money where my mouth was, but I would do it strategically and intelligently. Don't just roll up to the chamber and hand over $2,000 and think that some sort of magic's going to happen. You need to do it in a subjective, real, tangible way. And by the way, normally the relationship I build is with the girls and guy who sell the most memberships to the chamber. I don't go to the chairman of the board. I go to the people who are deciding who the speakers are. I'm going to the coal face where who's talking to the business owner. So if you're not a puddle jumper, a line cutter, ladder jumper, you're living life by a rule book, and it was created by a conformist. And I would challenge that, right? Like, here's something that what drives my wife nuts, right? Like I seldom pay for parking, right? If there's a line to pay, I'll just pay the parking ticket. And I know somebody's going to listen to that and go, what a dick. I just tell you, I just don't want to, light my time on fire. You know what I mean? Like if it's 10 minutes and I'm paying myself $1,000 an hour, do the math. I just rather pay the damn thing. And guess what? Half the time most of the time I don't end up getting a ticket, right? It's not like we're parking for 6 hours at a time. That's just good idea, bad idea, depending upon your situation, right? But that's something I'm doing. I'm not going to go wait in that damn line. So that's something, that's a little bit of a, line jumper. So moving cities, again, you can spend 300 grand on a house and 600 grand elsewhere, for the same house, for the same community, for the same XYZ. Might not be a bad idea to be thinking about it. Definitely in certain states and different parts of the world, you can pay so much less tax. Like as an example, Australia, where I lived for a long time, the taxes you pay in Australia would make your eyes water. But at the same time, the standard of living there is like, borderline unprecedented. It's unbelievable. So you've got some give and take. I'd be factoring these things in. I wouldn't just decide that I'm going to move every 5 years. I'd be going through a laundry list of things that I'm looking for, and see if that's a good idea. Again, like when you go to Disney World, you can pay for a backstage pass and not wait in any lines. You go down the fire wells and and you can go if you want to go on the roller coaster, 3 times in a row, which I did, by the way, you can pay to do that. You know what I mean? Like, again, you're jumping, like, are you living life by a rule book that was created by somebody that wants you to conform? And I'd be cautious with that one. At the same time, don't be a jerk off, and I think there's a strategic with all that. I want to make sure that, it's not like just start, jumping puddles and jumping ladders before you should be jumping the ladders. Do all the right things. But anyways, road dog moving, I think that's a good idea in a lot of cases. I think it should be done strategically. I'd be putting some factors like lifestyle and taxes, the economy, government, but government, they're only going to be there for so long and they're going to get ruled out. So don't make all of your decisions on stuff like that. The economy, again, like Calgary, Alberta used to be thriving, used to be like like it was like Texas and things were booming. It was incredible. And now they're in the doldrums, and they have been for the better part of a decade. Right. So again, these things all shift and change. So, and also road dog, maybe we'll go to, there's 4 things that motivate people. There's money, there's freedom, there is status/mastery, and the other one is like relationships. Again, and believe me, one of those 4 dominate you by a long way, 100%. So one of those is movement/freedom. So, in Road Dog's case, movement, freedom is significantly higher on his priority list, whereas I'm mastery, status all day long and twice on Sunday. Good, bad, and different is completely irrelevant. It's just knowing what drives you and knowing what drives your clients will be handy. So therefore, like, I personally, moving makes me throw up in my mouth, but somebody who's more driven by movement might be not only okay with it, but thrive in that environment. So I think that factors into it, Road Dog. What do you think, bud? How'd I do?
So it's funny you say that. Like, so for me, obviously, we've had this in-depth conversation. So I've actually written this out, and I look at this throughout the day now. And the question I continue to ask myself is, does this increase my freedom? Like, that is my new catch-all question, that before I do something now, I'm asking myself that question. So
Yeah.
so there you go, right? Because that's such an important part. And by the way, if you plan on moving, like, it is what it is, right? Like, it's just sort of if that's going to help you eliminate some stories of going out and making some phone calls, great. Like, you don't have to move to make that happen, but at the same time, if you do, great. I don't think it doesn't matter. You can build a business wherever, right? It's the story that you're telling yourself. So anyway, shoot. So, like, of everything that we've covered today, again, you know where I'm going with this, because I go there every single time on every single episode. What's the one piece that somebody can take from today's episode and start implementing into their business today?
One thing. I'm going to say objective versus subjective, really thinking that through. Like, again, objective is making it go faster, making it more efficient, more effective. And then subjective is improving the experience. So again, like, okay, I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head here. Like, let's say that I'm going to do a what do you call it? Like a business seminar, right? So instead of doing it in the morning, if you did it at 6 until 8, and then you did a 2-hour event at the chamber, and then you took everybody across the street, and you organized in advance, $500 of, booze for your group. Like, would that improve the experience for your group, where they're able to network at a higher level, get to know you, with your hair down, where you're not speaking, they can come up and ask you questions. They can see you in a social environment. And I'm very social. So I, like, around a bar, I'm very comfortable, good, bad, indifferent. I just am. So that would suit me. Okay. So then somebody's listening and they're heavy introvert, and they think, oh my God, a bar full of people makes me want to throw up. That's a horrible idea for you. Right. Like, so you could, do something different than that suits your personality. But you know what I mean? So the subjective, or what you could do is you could basically wheel in, here's another idea. Bring the bar to the event, right? So it's 2 hours and now it ends. You get somebody to come wheel in some booze. Don't do it during the event, because you don't want people drinking during your event. Very bad. But anyway, and then in that room, you turn on some music, and they stay in the same room, and network a little bit. And that way you can keep a little bit more control of the environment versus a bar where you don't have as much control. And I would encourage you to be thinking control. So I think that would improve dramatically the subjective, the experience of your event. I think that would be a good idea. So, and then thinking about your client, same thing. Like, another example is a cleaning company that leaves chocolates and whatnot. Again, that subjective experience, flowers and chocolates and that sort of stuff. If you have a client that has a decent sized cleaning company, there's a really, really, like, 90% chance they don't do that. Right? That would be instead of, more, what I mean? Like, instead of, going to the objective, you're going to the subjective of a cleaning company, which I don't need to meet your client to know that that's just not where they would go. Go psychological as opposed to X and O's and tangible. So I think that's an important one. Shoots. What do you think?
Well, I definitely think you're good around the bar. Definitely better than dancing on the bar. So there's some truth to all of this. So there you go. Anyways, folks, on that note, unless Karl's going to lead us out in song, I'm going to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man, the myth, the karaoke master himself, King Karl Bryan. And if you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, just want more information how to build your coaching company, visit focus.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone you think might make a great coach, or just your karaoke pals. They might be great too. And of course, as always, we'd appreciate if you'd rate the episode, as we know that iTunes, Spotify, and all those other streaming services give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. And that's it for another week. Unless Karl starts singing, remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.